Chapter 17. 10 pebbles had gone into my time can when I decided to do something Timothy had told me never to do. I was tired of eating fish and sea grape, so I wanted to save the few green coconuts I'd managed to find on the ground. There were none left in the trees. I wanted scallops or langosta to roast over the fire. I didn't dare go out on the North Beach for the scallops because of the sharks. But I thought, you know what, there might be langosta clinging to the coral at the bottom of the fishing hole. From what Timothy had told me, the sea entrance to the hole was too narrow for a large fish, a shark, to swim through. A barracuda, he said, maybe could go through. But they were not usually dangerous. If there happened to be an octopus down there, it would have to be a very small one. The big ones were always in the deep, deep water, he said. It was safe for him to dive in that hole. So I sharpened a stick the way Timothy had done. But I knew, if I felt a langosta with my hand, I'd have to be very quick with my right hand, or he would use his tail to push away from me across the sand. With Stu Cat, I went down to the reef and felt my way along the reef until I found the familiar edges of the hole, and I saw Stu Cat. "If I'm not in 20 minutes, you better jump in and get me," I said. The crazy old cat rubbed along my leg and purred. Holding the sharpened stick in my right hand, I slipped into the warm water, treading for a moment, waiting to see if anything came up. Then I ducked my head under water. I swam down a few feet, came up again. I was certain that I had nothing in the hole aside from the usual small fish, so I yanked out each morning. After a few minutes, I had the courage to dive to the bottom, holding a sharp stick in my left hand, and using my right hand to feel the coral and the rocks coming now and then up for air. I slowly felt my way around the bottom of the small pool, touching the sea fans, waving back and forth, feeling the organ pipe coral and the bigger chunks of brain coral. Several times I was startled by seaweed or fan that would brush against my face, and I'd swim quickly to the surface. It must have taken me nearly 30 minutes to decide I could go hunt langosta in the hole. This time I dived in earnest. I went straight down, touched the bottom, took a few strokes towards the coral sides of the pool. Timothy had said langosta were always at the bottom, usually over against the rocks in the coral. To my amazement, I touched one on the first sweep, and drove a sharp stick into them, swimming quickly to the surface. Panting, I shouted to Stu Cat, "Lobster tonight!" I swam to the edge, pushed the langosta off the stick, caught my breath again, and dived. I dived many times again, touching the hard shell that meant langosta. I began sticking my hands deeper into shelves and on the ledges near the bottom. I rested a few minutes and I decided, well, I'll make one more dive. I was happy with the lobster and now on the reef, but there was quite small, barely a meal for Stu Cat and I. So I dove again. This time I found what seemed to be an opening of a large deep hole, or at least the hole went far back. There has to be a big lobster in there, I thought. Until I came up again, I filled my lungs and dived immediately. I ran my hand back in the hole and something grabbed it. Terrified, I put my feet against the rocks to pull away. The pain was severe. Whatever it had my wrist. The strength of Timothy's arms. I jerked hard. Whatever it is came up with my arm, its tail smashing against my chest. I kicked and rose to the surface. The thing was still on my wrist. It had deep, sharp teeth that were sunk in deep. I'm sure I screamed when I broke water, flailing towards the edge of the hole. Then the thing let loose, and I made it up over the edge out of the hole. Pain shooting up my entire arm, I lay there panting on the edge of the pool and gingerly began to feel my wrist. It was bleeding, but not badly. But the teeth had sunk in deep. It wasn't a fish because the body was long and narrow, and sometime later I made an informed guess. It had been a large moray eel. Whatever it was, I never went back in that hole again.